There is a massive rot within Chinese society that's literally killing students. This is something the CCP doesn't want people to talk about. So let's talk about it. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Before we begin, do you know what the #1 most popular app in the world right now is? The China Uncensored app. Get exclusive China analysis you won't see anywhere else. Oh my God, I love learning about political infighting at the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. Available for Android and iOS, links below. So, did you know that China is living in the future? Just look at all the shiny, sparkly lights. Isn't it amazing? Yep, the future in China is bright, with typical cities that positively glow. Just ask random people on the street. They'll tell you.
What's the best country in the entire world?
China.
Why?
Beautiful culture there, delicious food.
The best in the entire world.
Probably gonna say China.
Why China?
Low crime rates, and they do a lot of manufacturing.
China.
Why?
It's like so futuristic compared to us, like they're so much more advanced than we are.
China.
Why China is your favorite country?
Because it's a well-developed country.
But there are many well-developed countries. Why exactly China?
Because it's a well-developed country.
Very natural. All those cuts while the people were answering definitely weren't so they could be fed more lines. And that's not all. Haven't you heard how incredibly safe and advanced China is? Pro-CCP shills love to brag about how advanced and beautiful China is. Absolutely not on the brink of total collapse. According to them, it's the roaring 20s in China, which is an odd choice of metaphor since the roaring 20s in the West ended with the Great Depression. But the problem is they're only giving you a very small, curated picture of China. What are they not showing? Things like this, which are a lot more common than China would have you believe. For example, earlier this month, thousands of people protested against Xuchang No. 6 Middle School after a 13-year-old girl unalived herself. Spoiler, we're going to be talking about unaliving so much in this episode that we can't say the word for unaliving without YouTube getting mad and unaliving the monetization of this video. The student, Wu Yijia, was reportedly doing well academically, but then her new homeroom teacher, known simply as Zhang, came. Family and classmates of Wu claimed that Zhang constantly bullied Wu for months, probably because Zhang is a super well-adjusted, happy person, like all adults that bully children. The bullying included frequent public insults, forcing her to stand as punishment, barring her from entering the classroom for an entire day, making her run in scorching heat, and inciting other classmates to ostracize her. Things got so bad that on May 23rd, after being forced to stand as punishment for 3 consecutive days, Wu Yijia jumped from the 16th floor of her apartment building and died. Wu's family met with school officials the next day and ended up in a heated argument, during which Zhang reportedly showed complete indifference and no remorse. According to Wu's family, the school put the blame for Wu's death entirely on them. So the family protested at the middle school entrance that evening. Wu's classmates, meanwhile, began sharing her story on social media, and it garnered tons of attention, hopefully forcing Zhang to stand in the unemployment line. The following morning, Wu's family returned to the school entrance holding pictures of the deceased. They demanded accountability. Then things escalated, with tons of students gathering, throwing flyers, smashing windows, and writing slogans like "Blood debt must be repaid." Yep, best country in the world right here. The authorities soon started getting involved, and by the evening, the police had sealed off the main roads surrounding the school and sent in a unit to keep guard, because a child getting bullied to death, whatever. People getting mad about a child getting bullied to death, knock it off. We live in a society. So what came out of this? Nothing. Wu's father came out with a video saying that everything's all handled and that he hoped everybody would stop talking about his daughter. There was a good chance that he was coerced by local authorities to say that. Wu's tragic story is just one of many similar stories in China, which is why I think now's the time for a China Uncensored mental health break. Oh, look at the puppies. Hopefully these ones didn't go to any Chinese puppy schools. Anyway, back to Chinese schools being dodgy after a student's death. For example, at the beginning of this year, a 17-year-old student at Pucheng Vocational Education Center died. The local authorities reported that the student fell to his death and ruled out criminality. Yep, just an accidental large fall from a building. Happens all the time in communist countries. But people started wondering if there was more to the story, and for good reason. The 17-year-old's mother said she first heard about her son's death a little past 7 a.m., but was taken to the hotel opposite the school, where two teachers took turns watching over her and didn't allow her to move freely until 4 p.m., when she was taken directly to the funeral home. They were essentially monitoring her and holding her hostage while potentially covering up a crime? It's kind of besides the point, but for all they do, teachers really don't get paid enough. When she finally saw him, she noticed that her son was neatly dressed with no external injuries on his face or head, but he had a lot of bruises under his neck. Now, I'm no medical expert, but all my years playing the pit stage in Mortal Kombat 2, I know that's not how injuries after falls work. She wanted to lift her son's clothes to see if there were other injuries, but more than a dozen teachers stopped her from seeing and taking any photos, which isn't at all sus. According to her, she only got to see her son briefly before she was driven out. And to make matters worse, the mother also claimed that all the mobile phones and watches of the children who knew about the situation were confiscated, and all photos in them were deleted. You know, the kind of thing innocent people do when they have nothing to hide and aren't going to wind up as an episode of a true crime podcast. People started asking questions, like why the kid's head was fine if he fell, why there were quote-unquote neck pinch marks, and why the school didn't allow the parents to see their child. Unanswered questions turned to outrage. Local people started rioting at the school. They threw rocks, paper money and paper beats rocks, and instead of scissors, fire hydrants, which I'm pretty sure beats everything. There were many clashes with the police, along with arrests, because covering up the death of a child, no problem. Being mad about that, have you no decency, sirs and madams? There were also reports that videos and live streams of the protests were getting deleted. But just look at those skylines sparkle! That's just a drop in the bucket. Schools and local authorities have been accused of covering up many other suspicious deaths. There was the December 2023 case when a 14-year-old reportedly had multiple bruises on his body, multiple holes in his arm, perhaps from a screwdriver, wounds exposing bones, and a twisted ankle. His cause of death was ruled as self-unaliving. That same month, a third-grade student from Lingshan Elementary School in Haikou died with multiple fractures and a dislocated arm. The school refused parents' requests to view surveillance footage, claiming that the cameras were damaged. And in 2021, a mother demanded transparency over her 17-year-old son's death in front of Chengdu No. 49 High School, after being told by the school that he fell from a building. But the mother wasn't notified by the school until 2 hours later when her son's body was at a funeral parlor, or allowed on campus to speak with his classmates or teachers. And school officials initially rejected her request to check footage from security cameras. With all these suspicious deaths, I'm starting to wonder if they kept Jeffrey Epstein in a Chinese school. I think you get the picture. And in China, that picture looks like this. Parents are left demanding answers because they can't trust the authorities to be transparent. This is a pattern Chinese people are all too familiar with. Chinese students die under strange circumstances. Parents start asking questions. The authorities do the exact opposite of being transparent. People get outraged, and those in power kill protests and information. Whoops, sorry YouTube. Unalive protests and information, because the language is the most offensive part of these stories. In fact, one viral 2021 Weibo post that talked about student unalivings is no longer available. Those in power, whether they be teachers or local authorities, are so afraid of looking bad that they'll do whatever it takes to hide information that sheds light on students' death. One school went so far as to make students sign unaliving disclaimers that said, if I commit the action of self-injuring or self-unaliving, it has nothing to do with the school. Myself, my parents, or my guardians will not claim any loss or ask for any compensation from the school or staff, nor will they disturb the school's teaching. What's that school's mascot, a lemming? The last thing officials want is to be known for having a toxic school environment, especially since the Chinese government, at least on paper, tries to make itself look like it cares for students. Of course, they could just, actually care for students, but I guess that's just asking too much from them. What kind of culture encourages this kind of response to tragedies as horrible as students' deaths? I'll tell you what, a culture cultivated by the CCP. The CCP are so obsessed with image, cracking down on protesters, and shutting down information that makes it look bad. So is it a surprise when institutions across China act the same? The students have literally become the teachers. So when you see people say China's a utopia that's investing in its people, remember images like this before they get censored too. The CCP is pumping a lot of money to these China shills to spread propaganda. We don't have those resources. So please, help us continue to expose the CCP by subscribing to our website, where we don't have to worry about YouTube censorship, and you'll get a bunch of exclusive content you won't ever see here on YouTube. That's ChinaUncensored.tv. You can just click on this button that's been on the screen. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.